Okay, we're going to look at solving two-step equations. Now, with two-step equations, there are actually two steps that you need to do. First one is you're going to use addition and subtraction to get the term with the variable alone and on one side of the equation, or one side of the equal sign. Then you're going to use multiplication and division to get the variable by itself with the coefficient of 1. Now, there is an exception to these two steps, and you'll see that in example number 4, but that's the only time that you'll have an exception to these two steps. Now remember, you want the variable positive and by itself on one side of the equation in order to solve the equation. Now this first one, our example 3x minus 2 equals 4. Now the first thing I've got to do is use addition and subtraction to move the number to the other side. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Now I'm going to draw a line straight down. Therefore, I remember what I do to one side of the line, I must do to the other side of the line. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. Now negative 2 plus 2, that is 0. But 4 plus 2 is going to be 6. Now if I simplify this, we don't have to write the 0, so if I take that away, I just have 3x equals 6. Now, it's 3x, that means 3 times x. So to unravel that or undo it, I need to divide by 3 on both sides. Now 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 3x divided by 3 simplifies down to 1x. And if we simplify that, we can just write it as x equals 2. Now that we have our answer, we can go back and double check to make sure we did it correctly. We do that by going over here and checking our answer. Use the same equation, 3x minus 2 equals 4. Put in 2 for the x. So I'm going to do 3 times 2 minus 2, see if that equals 4. We know 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 minus 2 does equal 4. So we know that my answer is correct without even having to go back and rewrite or go through the example. Now we have negative 18 minus 3y equals 12 as our next example. Just because my variable is going to be the second part of the equation doesn't necessarily mean I need to move that first. Now I need to move this negative 18 first because I moved the number away from the variable first. Now this is negative 18. The opposite of negative 18 is positive 18, or add 18 because I want it to be 0. So negative 18 plus 18 is 0. Now remember, what I do to one side, I must do the other. So I'm going to add 18 to 12, and that's 30. So I have 0 minus 3y equals 30. Now this 0 I don't have to write, but I need to make sure, since it's minus 3y, that I keep that minus sign. That becomes a negative now. So I have negative 3y equals 30. Now I need to get rid of the negative 3 and put it onto the other side. To move it, I need to divide each side by negative 3. So negative 3y divided by negative 3 is 1. And 30 divided by negative 3 is negative 10. So I have 1y equals negative 10. And that's the same thing as writing y equals negative 10. Here's my answer. Now I'm not done. I need to go and check. I take my original equation, negative 18 minus 3y equals 12, plug in negative 10 for y. So I do negative 18 minus 3 times negative 10 equals 12. Now I do the 3 times the negative 10, and that's negative 30. 18 minus negative 30 is the same thing as 18 plus 30. Remember, keep, change, flip. And if you do negative 18 plus a positive 30, you do get 12. So my answer is correct. Alright, number 3, we have m divided by 4 plus 2 equals 10. Draw my line so I make sure I do things to both sides. First thing I need to do is move this 2. It's a plus 2, so I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. That gets rid of my 2 over here and makes over here 8. Then since this is m divided by 4, I need to do the opposite. So I'm going to multiply this side by 4 and this side by 4. 8 times 4 is 32. And 4 times m divided by 4 is just 1m. So I'm going to get 1m equals 32. Basically, m equals 32. So over here, I'm going to always check my answer. M divided by 4 plus 2, see if that equals to 10. So I do 32 divided by 4 plus 2. So it's 32 divided by 4 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. So my answer is correct. This last one, remember, is the exception that I was telling you to the two-step rules that we have. We have x minus 4 all divided by negative 3 equals negative 6. Now when I have everything being divided by something, I need to first do multiplication to get rid of that and move it to the other side. I don't add or subtract yet. So instead of adding or subtracting, I'm going to multiply each side by the denominator, or this negative 3. So I multiply this side by negative 3 and this side by negative 3. Negative 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. And when I multiply this, what's in the parentheses, by the denominator, I just come up with the numerator, which is x minus 4. Then now we can add 4 to both sides and get 22 for our answer. So to check it, do the same thing. Plug in 22 for x in our original equation. So I have 22 minus 4 divided by negative 3 equals negative 6. I need to do this 22 minus 4 first. That gives me 18. 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. So my answer is correct. Alright, let's do some practice. This is from x divided by 5 plus 9 equals 11. Alright, the first thing I need to do is subtract 9 from both sides, because this is a plus 9, so I subtract 9 from both sides. I'm going to get x divided by 5 equals 2. Then I multiply by 5 on each side, because down here I'm dividing x by 5. I need to do the opposite. So I get 1x equals 10, and we know that x is 10. So go back up here. When I check my answer, I plug it in for x. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 2 plus 9 is 11, so my answer is correct. This one over here, I've got negative y minus 5 equals 11. Now, need to move my minus 5 first, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Then I'm going to have negative 1y equals 16. Now remember, this negative y means negative 1y. That's why I put negative 1 right here. Now I can either do one or two things. You can multiply by a negative on both sides, or you can divide by a negative on both sides. Doesn't matter, just as long as you get a positive y. And 16 divided by negative 1 is going to be a negative 16 as your answer. Now notice when I plug it back in to check my answer, I have negative y. Now when I plug that in, and negative 16 is negative, so what I want to do is put it in parentheses, so that I know I'm taking the opposite of negative 16. And the opposite of negative 16 is a positive 16. Then I'm subtracting 5 from that, and that's 11. And so since 11 equals 11, my answer is correct. Now, this next one, number 3, 7 minus 2x equals 7. The first thing I need to do is to move my 7. Now, this is a positive 7, so to undo it, I need to subtract 7. So I'm going to draw my line, so I know I've got to do what I do to one side, I must do the other. I'm going to subtract 7 from this side and this side. Now, 7 minus 7, that's 0. So I'm just left with this minus 2x, or now we consider a negative 2x. And 7 minus 7 is going to be 0. Next, I got a negative 2x. So I need to divide each side by a negative 2. Okay? Negative 2x divided by negative 2 is 1x, or just x. And 0 divided by negative 2 is 0. So my answer is 0. Come over here, I need to check my answer. I'm going to do 7 minus 2 times 0 equals 7. We know 2 times 0 is 0. So we get 7 minus 0. And we know 7 minus 0 is 7. So my answer checks out. And I'm good to go. My answer is correct. Over here, remember this one? X plus 3 divided by 7 equals negative 2 is my exception to my rules. Instead of minusing 3 first, I need to multiply both sides by 7. So I'm going to do this side is going to be multiplied by 7. And this negative 2 is going to be multiplied by 7. Remember, draw your line so you make sure that you're doing to one side and to the other. Now 7 times x plus 3 divided by 7 just gives me x plus 3. And negative 2 times 7 gives me a negative 14. Okay, now I need to move this 3. This is a plus 3. I need to do the opposite, so I need to subtract 3 from both sides. I get x to equal negative 14 minus 3 is going to be a negative 17 as my answer. Now, come over here to check it. Plug in negative 17 for x. See if it equals negative 2. We know negative 17 plus 3 is going to give me a negative 14. And we know negative 14 divided by 7 is a negative 2. So negative 2 does equal negative 2. So my answer is correct. Alright, now we need to apply what we've learned in two-step equations to an actual word problem or an application problem, which you'll have more of these later on. Now suppose you are helping prepare a large meal. You can peel 2 carrots per minute. You need 60 carrots. How long will it take you to finish if you already have 18 peeled? Now we're going to say x is the number of minutes we have, or that we need to finish peeling. So we peeled 2 carrots per minute. That means I'm going to do 2 carrots for every minute, and that's x. But we already have 18, so I'm going to add 18, and that's going to give us our total, which is 60. Now, first thing we need to do is subtract each side. We need to subtract 18. I'm going to draw my line so I make sure what I do to one side I must do to the other. So I'm subtracting 18 from this side and subtracting 18 from that side. I get 2x over here equals 60 minus 18 is 42. Now I divide each side by 2. And I get x to equal 21. And that's going to be 21 minutes you need to finish up your carrots. Now, what we can do to double check is let's plug this back in to our equation and see if it works. So, to check, I'm going to take 2x plus 18 is equal to 60. And I'm going to plug in 21 for x, so 2 times 21 plus 18, see if that equals 60. Oops, that's 60. Now 2 times 21 is 42. And we know 42 plus 18 is 60. So 60 does equal 60. So my answer is correct.